Good afternoon. It is May 17th. We are cloudy, a little on the cooler side. Had an inch 10, an inch 20 yesterday, and another 10 to 15 hundredths overnight sometime, which was much needed. It came awesome in this part of the world. Nobody is complaining that I've talked to. And the phone has been relatively quiet, minus a couple of conversations. I think everybody's just kind of taking a breather. A lot of guys wrapped up planting last week, first part of last week, and then I know some guys really rushed to get it in because we did have some pretty good chances starting Saturday for some rain. But yeah, so all is well up here in north central Nebraska. We've finally been warm last week. Now with this rain, we've got good temperatures coming afterwards, a couple more chances of a little more rain. Started checking some germination and emergence on stuff last week, which that reminds me I need to write up a couple of papers for a guy. Total squirrel moment. But nothing was up when we had the frost, was it 10-ish days ago, 8-10 days ago up here. A few beans on a couple of fields that were planted back like April 24, 25, 26, that maybe kind of popped out of the ground first thing. Got a little bit of nip to them, but they're going to be totally fine. Otherwise, we didn't have any corn out of the ground. Some first planted corn would have maybe just been spiking, but it's totally fine. Germination is looking good so far. Can't quite do any stand counts yet, but that's this week, particularly now with this moisture, and especially on my customers that have our gravity or our canal water up here with like gravity pipe or tubes, whatever it is that they use. They were starting to get a little bit worried. So this was just perfect. But what today I wanted to talk about and been kind of thinking about the last few days, especially with a little bit of scouting on Saturday, was you're done planting. Now what do we do? First off, start checking germination on things, particularly if you planted in some drier conditions. Stuff might be sitting there, stuff might be uneven. I did have a lot of guys. I ran around after a lot of planters this year, which was great. I love doing that. I have no problem coming chasing you around if you're moving to some different field situations, things like that, to just double check that you're going deep enough, what your spacing looks like. We had a few situations where we moved things closer to 2 inches on both corn and beans. And if you were at 2 inches, I told you to get out and check, particularly if you got out into some heavier or harder soil spots, or whatever is or isn't going on out there. But just to find moisture and consistent moisture. We were definitely getting pretty dry, and with so many of our fields, which so many of you deal with as well, you got variable soils. Obviously the sand dries out faster. If you did any type of tillage, hopefully things were a little more on the even side, but we definitely put things a little bit deep, which I would rather have too deep than too shallow. We all know that. We've all seen or had those situations. Hopefully not all had them, but have definitely seen them where something got in too shallow, and then later in the season you had some major problems. Which also, that still even shows up in a year like this, if things were as dry as they were, that you're gonna have some uneven emergence. Had a guy call me last Monday, is it a week ago now? And he was concerned, or his seed dealer was concerned, that because of the very weird soils on his field, varied from sand and gravel to duck pond, heavy stuff, particularly on the one field where he's not been able to farm it since 2018, that emergence was uneven. So he called just to get a third-party opinion on whether he should or shouldn't fire up the pivot. He didn't want to. Of course, his seed guy wanted him to, and I totally understand and totally get where that guy was coming from. but also the grower's concern of, if I run the pivot, we're going to get 2 inches of water, and now my bottom that had 1/2 inch of irrigation on it got another 2 inches of water and I'm flooded out again. I would rather take the risk of the good ground being further along than the sandy ground, letting the sandy ground, because that'll catch up. He said emergence was, I mean, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch difference in the corn spike coming. So he left it off, and haven't talked to him to see if he did fire up, because we did have a little bit of moisture come through Wednesday night or Thursday. Last week is all running together, but I'm sure he's totally fine. And particularly in that sandy soil we know was way warmer, it's going to catch up. But some soybeans, haven't found anything on the shallow side in a few spots, primarily in some compaction areas, so those headlands / end rows. Saturday that I found, did find some crooked soybeans. That'd be the coleoptile. Yeah, whatever it is on the soybeans, because I think coleoptile on corn, coleoptile and radical. Anyway, total Monday brain fart on that. But just those cool soil temperatures that we had once the beans got planted. But everything else is looking really good so far. Get out, check your germination, make sure stuff is coming like it needs to. There's still plenty of time if you've got a germination issue of corn and or beans not coming, to get in there and do a replant situation. Don't wait until stuff is up, 2-3 inches to make that decision. I don't know what everybody else is dealing with, but finding some hybrids on the corn side is getting a little tricky in my world, particularly if you wanted to go back in there with something relatively close to what you were planning for day length. Going shorter season, it's hard saying. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that everything that got out into the country north of me ate up a lot of the, less than 100-day corn. But just be checking and staying on top of it. Get your seed provider, get your agronomist or your crop scout out there to look for you, and be paying attention. So far, we haven't had the conditions for any diseases, seedling rots or anything like that coming up. We haven't been warm and wet, and we haven't been cool and wet. On the positive, we've been moderate and dry, and that shouldn't have too many, but I feel like there's something that can come up because it's been hot and dry. But like I said, we haven't been hot up here, but if you've been on the hotter side and on the drier side, be checking that kind of stuff as well. And then start doing your stand counts. Up here this week, I'll be able to start doing some, particularly by the end of this week, really be able to get an estimate of what is or isn't going to happen. Fingers crossed, and based on what we had for weather, every seed should germinate this year, which is really awesome, and I'm really excited for. The last few years, that first 7 to 10 days of May, we get cool and we get wet, and that really affects germination. But this is also a great time to be evaluating your hybrids and your varieties on seedling vigor and germination, and making notes of that. Granted, we don't know what next year's weather is going to be like, and we don't know the conditions, and hopefully everybody keeps the same type of hybrids around as far as companies go, but be making those notes, and that way then you know that, and you remember that. I myself am going to be doing some emergence flagging on 2 hybrids in my couple of plots. Particularly the new hybrids, and might do one that's just kind of a standard, as your check hybrid. But so that when I do that and I have those valuations and know what they look like in season, my one hybrid I know is slower emerging, but it all comes up in the same 1 to 2 days, 12 to 24 hours. Or 24 to 48 hours, excuse me. And I can tell you, the grower, that I can go, okay, this is a slower emerging. Don't freak out when everything else of yours is up, but this one isn't quite there yet. That's just the way that it is, but it all comes up at the same time. As an agronomist, as on the seed agronomist side of things, that's priceless for me to know that, so that I can inform you of that. And that way then you're not panicking and you're not freaking out. If it gets really crazy, then obviously we've got a problem, lot number or something's going on. out there. Am finding some wireworms and am finding some cutworms when I was doing some digs behind the planter here in the last couple of weeks. So be aware of that as well. And those little suckers, particularly if we get back here into the warmer temperatures, them cutworm. I mean, them cutworm have even been cutting off some of my peonies out here outside my garage. Ridiculous. Just baffles me. It's got to be cutworm, even though it's kind of in a weird spot, but I don't, and surely it's not rabbits, right? They wouldn't just bite it and then leave the dead body laying there. I'm blaming cutworm. That's just the way that it is. But holler with any questions, comments. I would love to know what you're seeing, what you're not seeing out there. Any hybrid notes on something that you're super excited about, share with me. It doesn't have to be just a channel thing, you know, DeKalb, Pioneer, NK, Golden Harvest, Cropland, Bex, Rank, whatever it is that you're planting, I would love to hear what some of your things are. And yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you all soon.